Hi everyone. I found a idea in this season's catalog that I just thought was really beautiful. So I wanted to try to copy it. So if you look on page 12, here is this beautiful single layout. The layout is called Never Stop Dreaming, and the inspiration is from this stamp set. So here are the flowers and stems and leaves and the title Never Stop Dreaming. These are regular stamp. This is a regular stamp set without any thin cuts or Cricut cuts. So in order to do this layout, you need to do fussy cutting. And I'm not going to do all of that because it would take me a while to do it. But I want you to notice that if you look at the close-ups of the roses and the chrysanthemum type flower, there is a design in the paper. And so it took me a little while to kind of figure out which paper to use and how they got that look. And so mostly they've used paper from Prickly Pear. So the rose is from the paper, and let me reach over here and get these papers. So the rose is stamped on this orange paper, so that's this side, and then here's the orange side. And then the chrysanthemum is on this yellow design paper. So these are called our B&Ts, our background and texture, excuse me. And you know, they're not a strong design. I mean, it's a color on color. And so it kind of goes into the background. And the back side of the yellow is this wonderful ombre going from dark to light, and with a white in the middle. And what I figured out is that some of the little rose buds here, let me try to zoom in a little bit more. So if you look closely, the rose buds are dark and kind of a medium and light. And so what they did to create that look is they stamped on the darker area and then the medium area and then the light area. And then the little dots, that paper is actually from Little Dreamer, I believe it's called. And that is, yeah, Little Dreamer. And that's this little heart paper, and on the back side of that are the little tiny dots. And so the rose buds are actually two pieces of paper that are overlapped, cut out and overlapped. So that was kind of interesting to figure out also. So this layout was kind of a little brain test for me. I don't know whether I passed. But so if you notice the outside paper, the 12 by 12, I'm going to raise this up just a tad, is this paper from Prickly Pear. And the back side of this is the orange that was used for the rose. So that remains the 12 by 12. And then the next paper is also from Prickly Pear, and on one side is the orange dots, and the opposite side is this green with little plus signs. And so I kind of guessed, and this looked like it might be a 1/2 inch. And so I cut that piece of paper to, since it's a 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch, I cut this piece of paper to 11 by 11. so that it would fit nicely inside. And then the other thing to notice is that these leaves, and this little lavender berry, and it's very, very light. It's very hard to see, but there's a swish of color over the Never Stop Dreaming. So those are watercolors. And the watercolors are from our watercolor kit here, which mine is looking very messy, but what you do if you haven't used these before is there's little indentations that correspond to each of the colors. And so when you want to kind of dilute a color, then you just take some water. Say I have my little cup of water over here, and say we want this green. So I wet it up real good, and then I put it over here, and I might put some more color on there and wet it up real good. And then if I want to add some more water to it, then that's how I worked with the watercolors. So let me move this out of the way for a second. And because you're working with watercolors, believe it or not, you really need to use watercolor paper. And you know, I didn't really think about that too much, not being a watercolor person, but I tried to repeatedly use regular cardstock with watercolor. Well, it just doesn't work right. Take it from me, it doesn't work right at all. So you really have to go for the watercolor paper. And we have this is Z3146, 12 by 12 white watercolor paper. And so the watercolor paper is about, I don't know, less than 1/4 of an inch anyway. So this is 12 by 12. The green edge is 11 by 11. And so I made the watercolor paper 10.5 by 10.5. And then the next thing I did was to cut a 7-inch circle from my Cricut. And this is in the Art Philosophy, which has all the basic shapes that you could ever hope to want. And I cut a 7-inch circle. And on the watercolor paper, I drew a very light pencil line in the center, close to the center. You know, you don't have to be perfect. So that gave me the chance to have kind of some semblance of a round circle making the wreath of flowers. And then everything that I stamped with Archival black. So that gave me a chance to put a little bit of watercolor over it. You have to let it dry really good. I would say at least 20-25 minutes, so that it doesn't smear. And you know, I just didn't pour water on it. I just did it kind of delicately. So here's the stamp set. And since I used the Archival black, it doesn't wash off. It's a permanent ink, so it doesn't really wash off like our regular water-based inks. But you know, it doesn't harm your stamp. You just see it better, and it shows up more when you put it back on your stamp plastic. So you can see here I didn't use this one, but I did use, this stamp is for these, obviously. And here's the little chrysanthemum, and here's the rose. And then these leaves is this leaf, and this are these. And there's only a few of these, like so here, this one, there's only three of those. And they were all, so after I stamped them with the Archival black, then and you can use the colors that you like, but I used, the colors I used on here were like, for these leaves, I used the yellowest, and I did some mixing of yellow with the green to get them a little bit more yellowish. So believe me, once you start working with the watercolors, you're gonna say, oh, I should have been doing this a long time ago. It's very zen, it's very relaxing, and you really get into it. And now I understand why a lot of older people take up painting, because it's just so peaceful. So anyway, that's what I wanted to show you with the Never Stop Dreaming stamp. And this was my final product. Now, I also, let me just tell you one other thing. I also noticed that the picture frame had the variation. So once again, it was taken from that ombre paper, and I cut out to also show some level of ombre. I cut that out to put my picture on. I haven't put a picture on it yet, because I have found a nice picture, but it's not of my family member. So, I might have to give it to that person, and then I'd have to give this away. I think she'd love it though. Anywho, this is that splash of light blue, which was this blue really watered down. I mean, just tremendously watered down, so that you just have a wash going over it. And you want to use a big brush that just kind of does that. And then the smaller, I use the smaller brush, this size brush, for these leaves and for the little dots, for the little berries. Now, if you notice, this doesn't have this little rosebud. So there was a lot of watercoloring here, and there were inky fingers, and things got out of control. And so there's a blob under here, but it just looks like it's falling off, a flower's falling off my wreath. So that's how I fix what appear to be boo-boos. They're not boo-boos, they were just a chance to individualize your art. So anyway, I will tell you a little bit more about this. I think I'll show you some more of how to put the flowers together and how to put the wreath together on my second video. So thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching my video. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and visit my blog at .scrapbooking.com.